Hello, my name is Guy, and a very good morning to you on this day, Sunday, September the 20th, and welcome to the next section in this service. And if you're listening or watching this and it's not Sunday, it's not September the 20th, and it's not even the morning, well, that's absolutely fine. It's great to have you along, and my hope is, as ever, that you will find something in what follows in the next 15 or 20 minutes that will be really meaningful and helpful to you, whatever your context, whatever your situation. So we're going to be reflecting on these two passages from the Bible that we've heard read to us already today, from the book of Jonah and the story of Jonah, and from one of the Psalms, Psalm 105. And as an extra bonus for free, I am going to be referring to a passage from one of the early books of the New Testament, from the book of Luke, chapter 4. But more of that in a minute or two. Now, I love the story of Jonah. And one of the reasons I love the story of Jonah, because Jonah really is a bit of a mess. He really is a mess. Here we've got somebody who God has chosen. God has called and said, I have got a job for you to do. I want you to go to the people of Nineveh and to talk to them about me and about my desire to know them and be in relationship with them, but also to warn them that the way they're living and the choices they're making are stopping them being in relationship with me. Jonah doesn't like the people of Nineveh. Jonah doesn't like what God's calling him to do, and he certainly doesn't like what he thinks God is going to do for the people of Nineveh, to be merciful and gracious and compassionate. It's kind of hilarious, and there's loads of irony and humour in this book of Jonah. And actually, just a word about that, because there are many biblical scholars that see the book of Jonah more as, not as the telling of a story of a real life historical figure, but more of a parable. And just as Jesus spoke in parables, in stories, to help us understand the character of God and what it means for me and for you, he also met real people in real life situations. Well, whatever your choice, you do the research, you make your own decision about how you read the book of Jonah. But I think it really doesn't matter, because there are some essential truths about the character of God that we can learn from the book of Jonah. So, as I said, we find Jonah in the passage we've had read to us, where God is showing mercy and compassion and patience with the people of Nineveh. Now, Nineveh was a real city. It would have been found in modern-day Iraq, not so far from Baghdad. So he looks down on the people of Nineveh, and his heart's desire is to be in relationship with them, to know them. And he's called Jonah to take that message to them. Now, if there's one thing that Jonah's experience and the character of Jonah tells us, it's this. It's that the people that God asks you and me to have compassion on, to love, may seriously mess with our expectations. So get ready, because God will ask us to love and to show compassion and to be in relationship with people that may mess with our expectations. And that's certainly what you find in Jonah. So as I said a moment or two ago, God has called Jonah to go to the people of Nineveh to talk to them about him. And actually Jonah has tried to avoid the whole mission. He's gone off to another place called Tarshish, and he doesn't want to come to Nineveh, and he doesn't want to do what God's asking him to do. But God is patient and perseveres and just keeps going after Jonah. And eventually Jonah does get to Nineveh, and he does go and tell them about God and about how God wants to be in relationship with them. He wants them to change the way they're living and make better quality decisions to get them in that relationship with God. And then we see in this passage that's been read to us, Jonah is then saying to God, but you know what? I just don't like what you're going to do for them, because you're a compassionate, gracious, kind, loving God. And I know what you're going to do. You're going to go and be kind and compassionate to them. And I don't like the Assyrians, the people that lived in Nineveh. I don't like what they've done in their history, because actually they were the sort of enemies of Jonah's people. And There have been disputes and land grabs and fighting and what have you. I don't like the Assyrian people, and I don't like what you're going to do for them. And Jonah, therefore, sort of goes off in a huff. And he goes off, and as we've heard read to us, he goes and climbs a hill, and he sort of sits there looking down on the hill and said, well, I'm just going to sit here and wait to see what happens to the people of Nineveh. But I've got a suspicion I know what you're going to do, God. And God sort of pokes fun at him, and he sort of says, hey, are you happy in your rage, Jonah? Are you happy in your rage? You want to judge these people? Are you happy in that? And Jonah actually goes, yeah, I am, actually. I'm very happy in this, I've had enough. If you want to be compassionate, well, just get rid of me, because I've had it. I've really had it with you, God, and I've had it with these people. And God actually carries on in this parable or in this story the humour and the irony, because Jonah sits up on the hill, and then this vine grows up and shelters him from the sun that's burning down. And then God sends in the story this worm that causes the vine to die. And then Jonah, he's not happy to start with, and then he's super not happy because he's just getting burnt by the sun, and he's really uncomfortable, and he's got to look at God being merciful and gracious to the people of Nineveh. And the passage finishes with God saying, hey, you're getting really upset about this vine that didn't exist yesterday and then did exist and helped shelter you, and now it's gone, and you're all wrapped up in that. And you're so wrapped up in that, you don't want me, God, to show mercy to this huge population of the city Nineveh who I just want to be in relationship with. So you've got all this irony and humour, but actually all wrapped up in it. It's showing God's passion to be in relationship with people, to know them, and to be able to walk with them in the daily routines of their lives. Now, in amongst all that, I'm going to jump now just to this passage from Luke, from chapter 4, and just hold those, if you like, those essential facts from the story of Jonah and God's passion to be in relationship with people, because that's his overriding passion and purpose, is to know me and to know you and to travel with us through the daily challenges of our lives. And God looked at the people of Nineveh, and this amazing thing, that God, he accepts the world as he finds it, not as he would want it to be, and he accepts people, me and you, as he finds them, however messed up you and I might be. And, there is coming a time, and, God talks about this through his scriptures in the book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible, when he talks about, well, there will be a new heaven and a new earth when everything is made good, and we'll live in total peace without suffering with Jesus. But that's not now. But God accepts the world as he finds it right now, and he accepts you and me as he finds us right now, and that's his passion. And this is shown when God's Son Jesus comes to live and do his work in this world. Well, this passage from Luke chapter 4 is a moment in Jesus' life and his sort of ministry and the work that he comes to do, where Jesus is in Capernaum. Now, Capernaum, if you were looking at a map of modern-day Israel, Capernaum's in the north, in the region of Galilee, with Syria off to the east, Lebanon off to the north, and Jesus has been in this town of Capernaum, and many people have brought their friends and relatives and family members who are sick, who need healing, whether with mental health issues or physical health issues or all kinds of other issues. And Jesus had spent this day and he had prayed and healed many, many, many people. Anyway, at the start of the following day, Jesus, as this passage of scripture tells us, got up very early and went to a deserted place to be alone with his Father, basically to pray, to speak to and listen to his Father. And again, not really as an aside, but that essential significance that Jesus took time out to be one-on-one with his Father in heaven frequently through his life. It's something that we really need to do in our daily lives is to find time to be one-on-one with Jesus, so we can tell him how we feel, tell him about the realities of our lives, but also receive from him. So we don't just go off doing what we think would be a good idea, even if it's from the best of intentions, but we can do what he wants us to do, and we can say what he wants us to say. Because following this time that Jesus has alone with his Father, the people from Capernaum, they track him down and they find him and they say, hey, look, there's loads more people from Capernaum and the surrounding area that need you to come and heal them, and they really, really want to be with you. So please come, follow us. We'll take you to the people. Because, I mean, who wouldn't want to heal people if they could? I mean, who wouldn't? Well, actually, Jesus wouldn't. Because Jesus' response is to say, actually, no. I need to go to another town. I need to go to other places so I can tell them about who I am and why I've come. And so people can be in relationship with their God. So here we've got this extraordinary situation where Jesus has been healing people, then he spends time alone with his Father, and then he knows what his priority is, which is to go and tell more people about who he is and why he's come, so they can be in relationship with him. It's the same compassion, it's the same heart that we see God telling us about through the story of Jonah, when God looks down on the people of Nineveh who are living their lives far from the way God wants them to live, and therefore far from being able to be in relationship with him. And he calls somebody in the person of Jonah, who finds it incredibly hard to show that compassion and love that God has for every people, every person, from all people groups, from every ethnic background, from whatever circumstances, whatever people are wrestling with. God's compassion is to know them and be with them. And yes, that's why, again, it's important for us to reflect that some of the people, because of God's universal compassion for all, that sometimes that will mess with our expectations, because God will call us to love others and be the vehicle for that love, to be the means for which how God shows that love to others. He will ask us to be that vehicle for love to people that we maybe find it really hard to love for very good reasons, because they may have betrayed us, they may have done us harm, they may not have been very kind to us, but God may well call us to be the vehicle through which he can show that love. So watch out for having your expectations seriously messed with. But also don't think that you have to do what God calls you to do in your own strength. God asked Jonah to deliver a message and then just to step back and see what God would do, the way only God can do it. And when we go to this passage from Psalm 105 to reflect on that, here again we are reminded of just how God moves in people's lives, and often in ways that we can't imagine. But God will do things in the spiritual realm that only he can do, often moving in the supernatural. And, to encourage you, often the people that seemed furthest away from God, like the people in Nineveh, often God, in order to reconcile, to bring those people back into relationship with him, God did extraordinary things. And the extraordinary things that God does are talked about in this passage from the Psalm 105. Because it starts with saying, hey, remember just how mighty God is, and don't forget the things that God has done. And then it talks specifically about actually how God looked after his people when they were brought out of captivity in Egypt, and when he looked after them in the desert, in the journey to the promised land. And I'll come back to that in a moment. But actually, if we think of so many of the people that God spoke to who were living their lives far, far away from what he hoped for and what he wants for them, so often God has moved in the spiritual realm. He's moved in the supernatural to do things that just speak directly to people. Because if we think of, people like Daniel, well, if you've heard of Daniel, you may remember Daniel from the lion's den and the story of how God saved them. But actually, if you roll back a little bit in the story of Daniel, Daniel was literally far away from God in the sense that he grew up in Jerusalem. That was where he was from, and he had been captured and taken into captivity, and he was living far away from his spiritual home and with a people that were far away from living the way God wanted them to. But God actually took Daniel, and he in the spirit revealed to Daniel what the king of the people who had captured him, King Nebuchadnezzar, he revealed the truth of Nebuchadnezzar's dreams. And he used Daniel to reveal truth in these dreams. And through that, he used Daniel to be a man of great influence and significance. And the people that had captured Daniel and taken him away from his homeland actually had the truths of God's love revealed to them. And if we look at other amazing figures in God's history, then we see this amazing woman, Esther, who, again, through prayer and through fasting, God used to move in the miraculous, and a whole people group was saved from extinction when it looked impossible through them. God moving in the supernatural, in the spirit. When we think of Joseph, the man of the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, well, here was a man who was sold into slavery, separated from his family, was in a prison. It looked impossible. But again, God moved in the supernatural, in the spiritual realm, and again, used him, gave him revelation of what Pharaoh's dreams really meant. And through that, the story of Joseph unfolds, and God uses him in incredibly significant ways to be a man of influence and to change the course of events. And then in this passage from Psalm 105, we hear these references to when Moses was chosen by God to be the leader who would God would use to take his people out of captivity from Egypt to the promised land. And God says, hey, rather than speaking through the prophets that I've done through the ages, I've got an even better idea. I will be your guide. I will give you a pillar of fire in the night to follow. I will give you a cloud by day to follow. I will provide for your needs by giving you quail to eat. And these are what these references are, where God moved in the supernatural. He moved in the spiritual realm to ensure his purposes were lived out for his people. But what can we take from this? Well, actually, that God's heart and passion is to know me and to know you personally, to be in relationship with us in a personal way and with others. And that as we grow in that relationship with God, then actually he will move in the spiritual realm. We should expect him to move in our lives in a way that influences others around them, where God does what only God can do. Because if there's another principle that's revealed through these stories that Psalm 105 refers to, it is this: that God chose these men and women of God and then moved in their lives in the spiritual realm, and amazing things happened. And as these men and women of God grew in their relationship with God and in their trust, as they grew, others grew. There is a truth here that personal renewal always leads to corporate renewal. That as we grow in our relationship with Jesus, and as he moves in our lives, others will grow. But you and I grow first, then others will grow. And then through this, we can tell our own stories. We can add to those great stories referred to in Psalm 105, and we can add, if you like, the next stage in the stories from Psalm 105, where your stories and my stories, that as we grow in our faith and our walk with God, with our walk with Jesus, we will see him do great things amongst our family and friends and our workplaces, because as you and I grow, so will others grow. So I hope you'll be encouraged, and you will see and be reminded just through Jonah, God's compassion for all peoples, of all nations, whatever their circumstances. Prepare for your expectations to be turned upside down and maybe a bit surprised on how God uses you to live out his purposes. And remember, as you grow, others around you will grow. God bless you.